Frank the Legend Shamrock. Everyone remembers when Boss Rutan was wrecking his face and Frank was just smiling and mocking him. That was f***ed up. It's not surprising that he's a 4-time undefeated UFC champion. He holds the world record for the fastest consecutive knockouts.
I'm the only person in the history of recorded sports to win back-to-back championships in less than a minute, ever. Only one on the planet.
The guy's a beast. Maybe it's because he was raised by a monster.
And I'd be all emotionally f***ed up because nobody knew what was happening to me. I didn't know what to do.
At 13, he was forced to live in a tool shed. So he started acting out and getting in serious trouble.
And then when I went and saw my counselor, she said, listen, if you keep doing this, they'll take you from your home.
And I was like, that's how I get out. That's how I do it.
Before he was beating people senseless in the ring, Frank was a scared little kid, and his most terrifying opponent lived in his own house.
My stepdad, Joe, had me live in the backyard for a couple weeks. It was like he wanted me to leave. He made me take everything out of my room and all my toys. And I just remember sitting there like under a tarp, under the frickin' clothesline, and just, you know, watching my Star Wars stuff get rained on, all my toys. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm living in the backyard. And that was, you know, that's what he would do.
He was pushed away into the shadows.
And then it turned into the tool shed. And it was just frightening and cold and damp and dark. And I was kind of laying there. And so I could smell the gasoline. It was right next to me from the mower. And I thought, wow, it smells really funny. And so I just started sniffing it. And it wasn't really like any conscious thing in the beginning. But it would just knock me out, and it would just wipe me out. And I would just have these crazy hallucinations, and I would fall asleep. And I would do that when I lived in the tool shed, because it was so hard. And then I would go to school in the daytime, and I'd be all emotionally f***ed up because nobody knew what was happening to me. And I didn't know what to do.
His stepdad had a bunch of messed up ways to punish Frank. But his favorite was to lock him inside a closet for hours.
My stepdad Joe would watch championship boxing on a Friday, Saturday night. I would massage his feet and I would watch boxing. It was the only experience I had outside of books and outside of school. So that was that was the thing. That was, the champion had the belt and they gave the speech.
Laying in that closet, I was like, that's what I'm going to become. I'm going to become a champion, and help people like myself, because this is terrible.
The strength that was shown, both in the contest and then in the moments afterwards, where you would speak. And I think that was what attracted me, is I could never speak. To go through that journey and then to be in a position to deliver a message, that was as important as being the champion.
Of course it's important. Especially when a sick is abusing you. You dream about getting revenge. You dream about showing the world what they're doing to you. But you can't do anything. You're just a kid.
I just never knew that things were weird. And it wasn't until I threw rocks at the train and got arrested and sent to juvenile hall and was sitting in juvenile hall and talking to all these bad kids that I heard all the rumors about. And I'm telling them what's going on, and they were just like, what are you talking about? They're like, that's insane. And I was just blown away. In fact, I started pulling back. I was like, well, I can't tell them all this stuff, because they were just shocked. And that's when I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out.
And then when I went and saw my counselor at juvenile hall, she was very poignant and said, listen, if you keep doing this, they'll take you from your home.
And I was like, that's how I get out. That's how I do it. And I just went all in. Like I was just stealing anything, everything. I would just steal it. I didn't even need it. I would just steal it. But it basically ended when I was robbing that Taco Bell. I know that sometimes they leave the window door open for the serving window, and I get there and it's totally open. So I literally just walk in. The door to the safe is open. The door to the office is open. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. There's a huge bag of cash. I just stuff it under my thing. I'm only in there maybe, 7 or 8 minutes. But as soon as I come out, I can see cars come in and cops come in. So I ran around the back, and behind it, there's a creek. And it was frozen because it's the middle of winter. And I jumped into that creek to get away from the cops. And as soon as I hit, I could feel the money come out, and then I could also feel that I was stuck under ice. And so I had to kind of crawl in and push through the ice, and then I just started running. It was a giant field, followed by like a mountain range, and then the tracks were right behind that. And I knew at the end of the tracks, there was an apartment complex where one of my friends lived. I was so cold and it was so painful. The cold was so painful. And then all of a sudden, it just got the warmest warm you've ever felt. I felt euphoric and wonderful, and I laid down on the tracks and was like, I'm just gonna take this tiny little nap. And I laid down and things started to kind of warm up, and then all of a sudden I went, holy shit, I have hypothermia.
Laying in the snow, his body temperature dropping, his heart slowing. Frank could have just drifted off to sleep and left his shitty life behind. But something inside of him wanted to keep fighting.
And so I popped up and I just kept running again, running down the tracks and running. And I finally got to my friend's house.
It wasn't long before the cops found him. And then Frank got his wish.
Quickly got me, juvenile hall, foster home. Like I started, going up the security system very quickly. That's when I met Bob Shamrock. And this guy was just totally different. He was just no nonsense. And he just sat down, and I went to give him my spiel, and he just goes, nope. Nope. He goes, we don't do bullshit. And he just cut me off, and he's like, listen, this is what we do. We're men. And he laid this thing out like a dad. And then he's like, if you come here, that's what'll happen. And then from the moment he picked me up, I was just like his son.
And it was the first time I got a lesson in what a father does. I never had a father, so I never understood the value of the lead warrior. He says, listen, son, you screwed up your life, but you built up this great body, and you built up your mind, and you built up your spirit. And it's like, you're ready to go try something. You're ready to apply yourself. And he said, you could be a fighter. You could be a warrior. There's a new sport coming on. Your brother's doing it. There's all this opportunity right now.
And we went out, and then the next day he dropped me off with the two statements. Don't show him you're scared, and don't give up.
Frank's adopted brother, Ken, also grew up in the shadows. He battled his demons and turned himself into a warrior. And when Frank came to train with him, he needed to show Frank the brutal world he's stepping into.
My brother did my tryout, and, he didn't want me there. The first minute, I thought, I'm actually kind of competitive. and then he just blasted me. It just knocked me down, and then I was like, holy shit, because no one had ever knocked me down in a fight before, ever. And then he just jumped on me and just started twisting me and bending my arm, tore my knees out, and I didn't know you couldn't tap. He's put me in all these holes and just tearing them because he's expecting me to give up. So at one point, he's got my leg and he's like turning it and he's tearing my knee out, and I'm screaming. By the end, I was just crawling on all fours, and Ken was like riding me and just beating on me. And it was horrible. I thought I was gonna die. Honestly thought that I was gonna die in that tryout.
It was 2 weeks before Frank could walk again. But he showed Ken that he could survive hell.
I got the invitation to go to Japan and to finish my training in Japan and then to enter the King of Pancrase tournament. I ended up fighting Boss Rutan as my very first match. I didn't know who he was, to be honest with you. And I quickly realized that he was a monster. I was just deathly afraid. The fight was 10 minutes. It went by for me in what seemed like a minute. I just remember tiny segments. One where he has my head and he's choking me and he's like, I'm so strong, I've got you. I just remember his words.
And I could feel my opponent getting stronger. I could feel his intention. He knew I was getting weaker. I knew I was getting weaker. I was crushed inside. My spirit was down here, and his was just way up here. His energy was this big. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is it. That voice started saying, you can't do this. You're gonna lose. Everything you worked for is gonna be gone in just a few minutes. And so I started thinking to myself and really started to hyperventilate and really started to get freaked out because this was my entire dream in my life. Everything in my life revolved around this moment, and I was about to lose it.
Laying in that closet, I was like, that's what I'm going to become. I'm going to become a champion. And I'm going to use that voice and that power to help people like myself, because this is terrible.
I went, wait a minute. I'm a warrior. And I looked up at him, and I could see this river of sweat pouring down his neck. So there was only one answer. Move forward.
I remember cross-facing him really hard and him spitting a little bit of blood on me. And then I remember him kicking my face and breaking my nose off. And then I remember us both having heel hooks on each other and thinking, I'm going to break his leg and he's going to break mine. And then I remember the bell rang. And they announced that I'd won, and I was just blown away. The whole thing was just so overwhelming. You know, I definitely walked out of that ring a different person. My stepdad, Joe, trained me to have a mind that is just unbreakable. You know, the things he did to us as children, they hardened my mind. I can survive and see through things that will make most people crumble.
I'm a warrior, and a warrior never gives up. And a warrior always finds a way to win.
Carl Jung once said, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Maybe when you experience intense suffering in your life, you can push yourself to become much more than the average human.